record on. So welcome to everyone today for our session on building student wellbeing during remote delivery. And what we have been asked to do is sort of to share what we've been doing, and hopefully the way we've planned this is to sort of outline how we came about as a wellbeing team, what we put into place to run this team, and what we decided our strategy would be for our students. And so, because we were discussing this, we thought if we go to some sessions like this, we'd like to come away with some ideas. Okay, if you think something's good, how can we do that in our own centre? So we'll be able to try and give you what worked, what didn't work, and how we went about things. Certainly at the end, if you've got some questions to each individual, there's 4 of us delivering this morning, and we've cut it up into sections. So you might have missed something or got a question, just jot it down and ask us at the end, and we're happy to share what we did and give you some ideas of how you can sort of pick it up and run it in your own place. And also we'd love to hear from you at the end to hear what you've been doing, and because it's always good to get new ideas. So sorry, you're going to have to hear me go. Next slide. Thanks, Tanya. So 2020, I'm sure all of these pictures resonate with you all, and it's been an amazing year, I suppose, if you can call it amazing. It's brought with it many challenges, but we feel also some opportunities, and we are certainly hoping 2021 will be a little bit different. Some people are saying not much different, some people are being more optimistic, so if it isn't, hopefully we'll probably be seeing you again like this in the future. Okay, I'm going to give you a bit of an outline of today's session. So we'll go through our learnings on how we supported student wellbeing during this pandemic, and why wellbeing sort of became a priority to start off with, what wellbeing strategy that we came up with, and what we did, challenges we faced and some of the things we've done to overcome that, and where to from here. We'll end off and sort of what we sort of found out in the end and where we're heading. So hopefully by the end of today, we would have covered these sections. So firstly, we all know that wellbeing plays a significant role in the achievement of learning outcomes for our students. They go hand in hand. So students who thrive and flourish usually demonstrate stronger academic performance in the end. So it was really a no-brainer at our centre that we needed to respond immediately back in March to ensure that our students would have the best experience we could offer. And everything was happening so suddenly. All of a sudden we all became online teachers and were delivering online. So what was the best experience students could have? So the first thing that we did was bring in our online front online staff, which was a very small group, and that ended up being us. So we were all usually responsible for dealing with different student issues on a daily basis, you know, attendance or visa issues, behavioural, financial, homestay, those sorts of student issues. We were all doing in our own jobs separately. So this group of small people who you're going to meet today, Hong, Renee, Tanya and myself, were brought together. We didn't have any preconceived plan or guidelines, but were asked, could you put together a wellbeing sort of team during this time and run with it. So although our roles focused on student wellbeing and services, as I said, we usually worked individually within our different areas. So a little bit silos and occasionally we'll cross. But for each of us, it's always been in our own best interests to try and minimise issues before they occur. So the mantra we decided to adopt as a team was the easiest mental health problem to address is the one that actually doesn't take place. And this is from the English Australia Guide to Best Practice in International Student Mental Health. So this guided us, and we tried to come up with a plan or strategy of what we could do to best support our students in this situation. So we had to mobilise really, really quickly. And in our first and only face-to-face meeting back in March before lockdown, our first question was, what do our students need now? So what did we think our students needed now? And we all understood that, you know, it's just the little things that sometimes that you can do that really count with students. So it might be some small action that you take, and by even replying to a student's email or a discussion post, or that, how students feel about that, they feel seen. It makes them feel that their teacher or support staff knows them and knows that they care. So we thought students really need to connect with others, local and other students, even though they were working from home. They need to be visible. They would like to be visible, that they're seen by their teachers and other people and our language centre, and to be listened to. So if they had something to say or had some ideas or opinions or just needed someone to talk to, that they were listened to. We also thought it was really important to reassure them, because at that point, you know, we're talking about when we started in March, there was so much social media hysteria over what was happening, and no one really knew what was going on, and there was so much media about it. So we wanted them to feel reassured. So based on this, we brainstormed proactive and preventative measures, and our strategy to provide the students with tools we felt that they needed to enhance their wellbeing during this new unfamiliar environment. So our strategy, the first one, was to help students feel connected to us, to the ELC, and also the wider Australian and university and Australian community. So we understood that students want connection and community. That was our first point. We wanted to let students know that we do care about them, that they're visible, we know they're there. We wanted to hear their voices and hear what they had to say. We obviously wanted to support their well-being and mental health while in isolation. So we thought that that was really important. So what could we do that, to give that support? Help them feel safe and normal, even though everything at the time wasn't feeling normal, and reassure them, as I said previously, that it's okay to be worried and unsure about the future, but we're here to help them and we'll do what we can. We wanted to make information for the students really easily accessible, and communicate really clearly about student services that they could access. You know, if they were having financial difficulties, if they needed to apply for the hardship funding that was available, counselling services at our university, or any events. So we wanted to put it, sort of have a one-stop shop where they could find that information really easily. We didn't want to add to all the information going on around COVID, because we felt that that was being dealt with adequately by the wider university and media. You could just, you know, log in anywhere and find out the numbers and what's happening. So we kept away from that sort of information. So to accomplish this, we wanted to provide them also with student-centred focused activities that focused around their wellbeing, things that they could do, things that they could be in control of. What was really important, we thought, was to have a whole centre approach. You know, we could put stuff together and get stuff out there, but we needed to get our teachers involved and then to integrate wellbeing into their teaching programs, that it wasn't just a separate thing, it was all integrated. Because, you know, our teaching staff are, you know, the ones who are more aware of what's going on outside of the classroom. And we also thought we could provide teachers with resources and get them to unpack what we sent to students and use that in the class. And finally, we thought it would be really good to give students their own agency and a voice to find out what they wanted. So these, and we're going to sort of talk to these, the strategy that we came up in these points as we go through the presentation today. So moving forward, we made a commitment at that first meeting to meet weekly, where we could plan and create and reflect and support each other. And so we knew that our next meeting would be remote, because we were packing up our offices at that time. And we decided it was really important that these meetings were very short, to the point, and productive. So we could go away from that meeting and knew exactly what we needed to do before we met again the following week. So we took on equal responsibility and were very committed, and because we shared this intrinsic motivation, we're quite passionate and really cared about student welfare. We also trusted each other enormously because, you know, you can go away from a meeting and, you know, just you knew that whoever was responsible for something would have that done by the next time you met. So we had real team ownership because we had very tight deadlines, and we were sort of on the run, just staying one step ahead of everything. So we had to try and think, you know, we never thought of ourselves as being creative or innovative people, but we had to become creative, innovative, and think outside the square and come up, like if we ever had an activity which was sort of competitive anyway, but we didn't have any money either to offer financial incentives, like here's a competition, do this, this is what you win. We just didn't have that. So we had to try and think of ways around that to motivate students. Okay, Tanya, I'll pass over to you.
I'll take over a little bit. Hi everyone, I'm Tanya Dahlenburg, and I'm part of advocacy, the wellbeing team. I guess in the other part of my role in the English language centre, I'm the operations manager. So it was sort of a bit of a hub point and part of the reason why I was asked to join the team. And I must say it's been a great, as Sandra said, a great support to me and my team and my roles in working together as part of it this year, particularly in these strange times and circumstances. So picking up from where Sandra has just shared, after our first meetings, one of the first things we thought we could do and implement quite quickly that would be really useful for the students in our centre would be to start to put together a weekly newsletter, which to sending out to our students who were both onshore and offshore at that time. We decided we would keep the focus for CHUM predominantly on staying connected and keeping them connected and healthy, and trying to really encourage them to keep thinking about their well-being in a positive way while they were continuing their studies and readjusting to the new environment that they were in, and sort of helping them to encouraging them to find that focus of developing a sense of community even when they were in isolation, rather than just sort of feeling like they were alone. We decided to keep really positive. So rather than sort of focus our weekly emails on sort of the negative parts of maybe the COVID-19 and the pandemic and what was happening, we didn't want to overload them with any additional information on that. We did reflect in it a little bit, but we predominantly kept it more personal and tried to make it on positive steps that they could do to continue again to help develop that sense of community and look after their health and well-being. We encouraged teachers to unpack the emails, which we called the ELC Wellbeing Hub, and use them as a resource, as we wanted them to sort of continue to be embedded as where possible in the wellbeing activities that might be happening in daily classes that they have with their teachers, and that it wasn't necessarily seen as a separate thing. But again, coming back to that idea of the whole centre approach to wellbeing. We were pretty much coming up with topics on the go as we went. Obviously, nobody had any sort of idea that this was coming as quickly as it did. So we were really just working a week ahead of where we were at for sending things out. But the advantage of that was it did allow us to sort of, I guess, target and focus those emails very quickly on things that were happening in the environment, or when we were connecting with students in different ways, the information we were hearing back through either teachers or even the students themselves. What they needed, we could kind of build that into the ELC Hub emails to sort of support them in where they were, I guess, that point they might be on in their journey as we all went through this together. We took turns in developing the content ourselves, and we shared those ideas together and then decided on the topics that we were going to do, and then went away and sort of worked together independently on our topics we were working on and pulled them together on a weekly basis. Structurally, looking at the email itself, our first section of the email, or the Wellbeing Hub email, focused on the topic they were particularly looking at, and was aimed at really providing not only content but also the opportunities for students to explore and interact with that more. So it wasn't just a head knowledge thing or an academic based thing, but we gave a lot of suggestions of actions they could do, activities they could try, maybe links to other resources and videos that they could explore in their own time, to make it a much more engaging opportunity rather than just an information email. The next part of the actual wellbeing email itself, we focused on any additional information that we were receiving from the wider university or even the wider community of people supporting international students. So, and particularly the focus on their health and wellbeing. So it could be Facebook groups of different people offering activities when students were in isolation in the wider university. We were focusing on promoting when there might have been availability for food donations in different parts of the charities around our local area or their local area, particularly if they're onshore. Maybe it was online activities with other students. The ability to be able to support, apply for financial support for the student support packages. So that kind of information was the next part of our newsletter. And then finally, in each part of our newsletter, we promoted our school and university services that were available for students. That was pretty much a consistent part of our email. We didn't really change it from week to week, but and we're aware that probably students may not be reading it all the time, but we also wanted it to be a place where if students were in need of counselling support or suddenly weren't feeling well and did need to see a doctor or were unsure about a question or something, we wanted them to have a real idea to go, if I go back to that email at the bottom, I'll find exactly what I need to know. And so it was more a reference point rather than something that was going to be changed every week. So we kept it fairly standard throughout the entire time that we were working on those emails. And yeah, finally, we would always end with just sort of letting them know where they could get support. And also we actually added in quite early on our picture, which we showed you earlier of the four of us as the wellbeing team. We decided it was really important for developing that community and giving a face and that visibility so that when we were contacting them by email or by phone or other ways, that they kind of knew what we looked like and we weren't just a name on a piece of paper. So we wanted to keep a real visual identity attached to that. So we attached that, that photo of us at the bottom of every particular email we sent. So it was a little bit more personalised in a very, although it was a very maybe impersonalised form of communicating at the time. Kept us visible and connected in that way. Regarding sort of topics, this is sort of a bit of a summary of some of the topics we did. We had 15 weeks with this particular cohort, our main cohort that we were teaching at the time when COVID started. So we always started with a welcome email. We've been revising that and sending that out to every group that started with us since that point back in March. And this sort of ran us through from March until July. So you can see that we picked up things like right at the beginning about how you stay healthy when you're really in isolation and staying at home. That was sort of around a lot of, you know, simple things like going out for a walk. Are you looking after yourself? Are you doing something you enjoy? Not just studying the whole time. We did things like mindfulness and helping them to sort of help with the mental health aspect of it, encouraging them to keep the track of, you know, their own mental health and positive well-being. We sort of put in things like a little experiment. When you can't get outside, why not go and do some virtual tours and see some zoos, cute animals, whatever you need, something to bring a smile to your face. Staying connected was all about activities with other students online in particular. Things like reading and listening activities that might be a bit different from the ones they were doing in class. Exploring some of the performing arts online or taking a walk around your local area and seeing the visual art around the place with art and music. We also explored, you know, mindful eating and eating habits. As you know, everyone knows about the problems of isolation and how much you can self-indulge. So we were encouraging them to be mindful of their eating habits in their time. About encouraging them to take time out of the technology they were connecting into, tech detox, ERC social club promotion, which we'll hear more about later. And then we moved, I guess, as the restrictions sort of opened up a little bit more, particularly in South Australia, and for those that were onshore, we started exploring some of the more local cultural things a bit, like, you know, just Australian sporting teams, what you can do in Adelaide, and sort of things that might be changing as they're preparing to move on to their other studies. Particularly, we wanted to bring in some of the South Australian content because ultimately most of the students we're communicating with have intentions to come here and really missing the fact that they weren't here. And so rather than sort of I guess we saw it as a way of continuing to help them to engage and feel like they're part of the wider community here, rather than just sort of pretending that they're not here yet and not sort of making that a sort of contact. So we wanted to sort of start to embrace that community aspect and give them ideas of connectedness with Adelaide in particular and what happens here. Hopefully to give them some more comfortableness when they do eventually arrive in Adelaide to continue their studies face-to-face. So that was sort of the first aspect of what we implemented straight away. We actually started that on week, like Sandra said, the week after we got together as a team, we sent out our first email, and we have been doing that ever since. So our first group, sort of main group, finished in July. Obviously, since then we have had another whole cohort that's been moving through this second half of the year in semester 2, and we've been basically revisiting those same topics again. And just sort of tweaking them to make sure they're still relevant for our current students in the current environment. But a lot of that information we've discovered is still really relevant for our students in the environment they're in. So it's actually something we've been able to sort of reuse and revise and continue to share with our new students that have come in semester 2. The next thing that we actually started doing was what we called our wellbeing team drop-ins. They literally were a drop-in almost into classes. So we actually wanted to continue being visible to our students. So rather than just being a page on an email and some information and some heads on a square, we kind of wanted to drop into classes and show that we were real people and we were really connected with them, and really were interested in hearing what they wanted to say and were really available to support them. So we started dropping into all of our classes just to explain why we're here, which, as you can see, we wanted to tell them that we're here for them. We wanted to support them and connect them with other students during their online remote learning experience. We wanted to help them with their focus on their wellbeing, because we understood the challenges they were going through with this studying remotely and being a long way away and just having their plans upended from what they were expecting, and that we were really here to help them. We did sort of have some guidelines. Again, we wanted to make sure that it was quite clear when we dropped into classes, just to let them know we weren't really there to answer their academic questions. So we sort of directed them back to their teachers or their education program managers for their academic questions. But we were there to help them if they weren't feeling themselves or they just wanted to talk or had any questions about anything. So we were dropped in on and have been dropping in at least once for every class, probably usually right at the beginning of their program, about the 2nd or 3rd week when they start, for all our pre-enrollment programs, our general English for academic programs, our pathway programs, and also our study tours. So even though they have no intention, well, they unfortunately are never going to be able to get here because their classes are so short in time frame. We still want them to know that they're part of our community, and this has been a really important part of that, just dropping in to say hello. And so I'm going to pass over now to to Renee, who's going to share a little bit more about another way that we supported students as part of our wellbeing strategy. Thanks, Renee.
Thank you, Tanya. Hi everyone, my name is Renee Carter. At the English Language Centre, I'm a senior project officer. One large part of my role has been organising our homestay program, which very quickly became a very small role because unfortunately we weren't able to have host students here. So like many students in English language centres, my role changed a bit, and we focused on, one part of my role was to focus on this team. So as it's been said a few times, in our initial meeting, the week the state went into isolation, we all agreed that one of the most effective ways to check in on the students that we weren't physically able to get to was to phone them. So we made phone calls to all the students, both on and offshore, and in most cases a follow-up phone call. We felt that this could result in a big impact on their wellbeing, and it provided a much more personal approach using first names, connecting with a real person and reaching out. So how did we implement this? We identified and utilised staff whose hours were down on their everyday roles, and we pivoted them to help us with this load. We developed a training session and resources called Keeping in Touch with ELC Students, which included a mixture of conversation starters, direct questions, and helpful directions for if the call turned to a subject that our team members weren't familiar with. As you can imagine, this process was very labour and resource intensive. However, we did have a successful strategy. We worked closely with both our IT and our finance team to come up with a solution on how we could get in contact with our students, and also not rack up very expensive individual phone bills. And the answer was using our VoIP telephone system, which uses internet download charges rather than international call rates. So for your information, this worked out to about 9 cents per minute to students in China. Next slide, please, Tanya. Thank you. Our aim of the phone contact was to check in on students and ask them how they were going, not about their study or their teacher or program, but about their well-being, and explaining and then encouraging what a study work-life balance is. So these first phone calls were very basic. We introduced ourselves, where we fitted into the ELC, and then we explained why we were calling. We confirmed with the students that they were making friends in their class, that they had no troubles using the technology, and if they couldn't, what the university could provide for them. We ensured that they were exercising, getting fresh air, that they were doing more than just studying, and that they were in contact with their friends and family back home. Notes were kept on all conversations so that appropriate follow-up could occur in the second phone call. Even now, we've continued to make phone calls to our new cohorts, who the majority are still at home in their home country, living with parents or flatmates or whatever. And then we follow up with the students who we deem to be at risk if they're not getting out and about, if they're only doing study, if they aren't making friends in class. So while there were some students who weren't all that interested in talking to us, anecdotal feedback on the calls was very positive, and students voiced that they were surprised and very happy that someone from the ELC was interested in them and had made a call to check in on them. We received multiple emails from students thanking us for getting in touch with them. One of my favourite emails was from a student who was expressing their excitement at receiving their first ever international phone call, which was fantastic. If we couldn't get in contact with the students, we would follow up with an email explaining who we were, why we were trying to get in contact, and confirming the contact number that we had with them. A few students did respond with this with like an "I'm fine, I don't need to be phoned," and I guess in this instance that's okay. Some of the challenges we know we have ahead of us is that when students are able to come back into the country, they've missed such an opportunity, an important initiation period of studying in Australia. So we're keeping this in mind. We've developed modules as part of our online programs, which share with students very small snippets of life in Adelaide. An example of 2 of these modules are we're doing an Adelaide tour by way of Amazing Race. So we're showing students different parts of Adelaide and they have to find key features. And we're also doing an online homestay session where students meet one of our homestay families. They ask some prepared questions and they go on a house tour. Initial testing of these with groups of Japanese students have provided that they're quite successful and were received by the students. Thanks. Hung?
Thanks, Renee. Hello, everyone. My name's Hung Dao, and I'm the ELC's Student Services Advisor, and I assist students with non-academic issues. These issues can be in relation to compliance, attendance, transfers, change of academic plans, and withdrawals. I also plan and organise the events for the ELC Social Club, which I'm going to touch on now, and I am also the volunteer coordinator for the ELC Intercultural Program. So obviously, in response to the global pandemic, we had to implement an online social club for our ELC students and our intercultural volunteers, who are both domestic and international students and people from the general public. We wanted to make them feel safe and connected, even though it was not physically possible to do so. And we wanted to replicate and create the same opportunities for our ELC students to meet other international students, build their intercultural awareness, and develop their cross-cultural communication skills, as well as make new friends as if they were studying onshore at the ELC. We also wanted to engage them positively in a comfortable, non-judgmental and non-threatening environment, which obviously increases their capacity for independent learning of both the English language and also their cultural competencies. But more importantly, we wanted to provide a sense of well-being and an opportunity for relationship building between students and volunteers with the university and the wider community. So as a result, we continue to offer activities to help connect students to the ELC and the wider community by offering our social club activities outside their lessons. But the main change was that we offered them online. So one of our most popular face-to-face activities was Coffee and Chat. Coffee and Chat was run on a weekly basis at a local cafe that was scheduled after students' lessons. It was an informal chat with students onshore, with our ELC volunteers and ELC staff. Moving this event online had its challenges. Initially, uptake for the newly branded OChat, which for online was actually low from our students and quite unbalanced. For the first month or two of our volunteers greatly outnumbered our student participation. And because of this imbalance, we slowly found that volunteer participation slowly decreased as well. So in response to this, we decided to incorporate OChat into a program that the ELC was already delivering online to a cohort of students in Japan. We believe that this would act as an incentive to our volunteers because we had guaranteed 20 students at each OChat session. This is to balance out the ratio of students to volunteers, increase cultural diversity, and expose the non-integrated Japanese cohort to other students studying online at the ELC. I think this innovative change proved to be a success. OChat sessions gradually increased in numbers for volunteers and students from other ELC programs that were also strongly participating as well. Obviously, all of this would not have been possible without the ELC Wellbeing phone calls, the Wellbeing drop-ins into classes, and the program managers and teacher support promoting the benefits of the ELC Social Club. The increasing popularity of the online social club club started to spread from the ELC-based programs to University of Adelaide students who were studying in their award programs remotely. The ELC Social Club has built up a small cohort of award students, both onshore and offshore, that regularly attend online to social club events now as well, which is great. All of our events are scheduled outside their class times to ensure that all students have the opportunity to connect and participate. We are very conscious of the different time zones for our students. Therefore, we're quite flexible in the delivery of this program. Depending on timetabling, events can run twice on the same day, offering a morning and afternoon option, or they can run twice in a week. As you can see from the newsletter, excuse me, yeah. All our events are scheduled in a way that all our students can manage and forward plan if they want to attend. And our events are divided into three main categories. The first one is OChat, which is formerly known as Coffee and Chat, which is a fun, informal chat with our students and our ELC intercultural volunteers and staff. The second one is what we call cross-cultural conversations, or O cross-cultural conversations. This is an opportunity for our students to participate and develop speaking fluency by participating in organized and structured activities with the tasks, with the assistance of our volunteers. And the last one there is our online social club activities, such as online Pictionary, Taboo. We ran quiz nights and Guess Who and scavengers hunts. As mentioned before, oops, still there. For the majority of our ELC online programs, the social club is not incorporated into them. It is a social program designed for students to engage in social events and activities outside their studies. So basically, in short, students have the option in whether they want to participate with the social club or not. It is not compulsory, but we do promote its social and well-being benefits. We've had students wake up at 3 a.m. or stay up past midnight their time and participate in OChat sessions before class on a regular basis. The feedback from them was that they found it very beneficial, engaging, and gave them similar experiences as if they were onshore, participating face-to-face with these events in Adelaide. So I think the value add of the ELC Social Club program is that students get to experience speaking, connecting, and building relationships with our volunteers who come from various backgrounds, age groups, and experiences. They are often one of the first people, not from the student's background, that the ELC students are given an opportunity to connect with outside of their academic learning space. The ELC Wellbeing team and the rest of the ELC admin team are also backups to help facilitate events when we are short of volunteers, especially during exam times. So it's quite exciting to see that we've been able to enhance student independent learning, promote relationship building, create a sense of community and well-being, and reduce loneliness amongst all these students during a time where they feel least connected and supported. Thanks.
Thanks, Hung. So there, I mean, Tanya, Renee and Hung have outlined how we address that strategy, our wellbeing strategy that we came up with in the first few weeks about connecting and giving them and focusing on their wellbeing and mental health, and what we could do to make them feel that, you know, we are making contact, that they're part of our community. So when we got to the end of the first cohort back in August, I suppose, of coming through all of that at the end of July, we wanted to work out, okay, what effect have we actually had? We needed to get some feedback. Or have we been doing all of this and nobody's been listening? So we thought, well, let's organise a focus group, because that was one of our final points of what we wanted, you know, to give students agency and give students a voice and get them to be part of taking their own, you know, responsibility for their well-being. So we wanted to get a culturally diverse group. So we targeted students from different countries. And so we did end up getting students from China, Saudi Arabia, Japan, and Ecuador. So that was good. And we did this, students did this voluntarily, and it was there was a week break in their program, so they could, they weren't studying at the same time. So from our phone calls, we sort of identified students who did seem to feel comfortable chatting and seemed to be willing to get involved in conversations. So we made invitations to those students. And so from that, we got our group. Some of them didn't want it, they wanted their break and to go off and do other things, so that was fine. But we didn't want to add pressure to their academic program. So that was really good. So the feedback we got, onto the next slide, was really quite helpful for us, because the whole purpose of it was how effective our wellbeing strategy has been so far. Because we, you know, put it, those newsletters coming out with those topics, and we were finding links to different things and activities they could do. So we wanted to see how effective we'd actually been during their online remote learning experience. We wanted to find out what it was they actually engaged in, what they found useful so far regarding the newsletter, the phone calls, the drop-ins we were doing to their classes, and as Hung's just talked about, their social clubs. So we, you know, which ones were they engaging with, or all of them, or some of them? And we wanted to explore ways to include the student voice and identify any student-driven activities that could happen in the future, or experiences, or, you know, ways to get students involved, so they felt that they were part of this. And so we were asking, is there anything more that we could be doing to support them, and was there some things that they could also offer? So our findings were really good. We acquired some really good constructive feedback, which has guided us already, because we're now working through the second lot of students when we've got a different sort of cohort now, when, you know, everybody is away and in their own countries. We've just got a real handful of students who are onshore. So it's going to guide us, we're already guiding us, and where we go in 21, if this is how we continue to operate. So we've got some new and some modified approaches as well. We've been, from the feedback, you know, have to modify some of the things that we were doing, and some new activities, And really, hopefully, and we're going to push for this, some student involvement in our future communication with the student body. And at the time of the focus group, there was interest, and we've got to follow that up and get them on board. So overall, there are a lot of positives that came out of it, and also some things we could be doing more effectively. Like when Tanya went through those newsletters, we'll find out students were engaging, but they actually, didn't find time to click on a lot of the links. And so, they said that they would rather, see more visuals of things rather than click on a link to take them somewhere. So we're taking that in mind for the newsletters that we're doing from now on. But it also reinforced and confirmed that we're on the right track. So the positive feedback helped us feel, okay, what we're doing is working, there are things we need to change, but this is needed to continue. So challenges ahead for us moving forward. As I mentioned, we've got a different type of student now with different needs because the majority of students, and I'm sure your students, are offshore. They're not in isolation. They're living at home. They've got their parents cooking for them. They're not having to develop those independent skills that they would have been doing if they were here on shore. They're not engaging with our university face-to-face, but it's all on this sort of remote online thing. They're able to move about. They've got access to their friends and what they were doing, at home. Whereas if they were here in Adelaide, study would be a main focus, and then developing new friendships. For some of them, they even haven't tweaked that their study is full-time, even though it is a full-time course, because they are still living in the same way that they were before. And as I said, that not really having that experience with our university. So we've got to think of how we can connect them more to the university for when they come. And it's always for when they come, because there's always that hope. And I think a lot of students still have that hope that things will change. So we need to also think of preparing them for when the borders open, and what, in the best way we can, so that when they arrive, they know what they're expecting. And Renee mentioned some of the things that already are going ahead, like with homestay and families, and having that experience of a home, and they were in homestay, and the place, forgot what it's called, Renee, when they go around looking for places in Adelaide.
The Amazing Race.
What do you call that activity?
The Amazing Race.
Amazing Race, that's it. So finding those points. So that, again, draws them into their Adelaide experience. But as I said, it's that student voice is one of the big challenges ahead for us. We feel in 2021 we'd love to get them running a few sessions and writing for our newsletter. So is it sustainable? Well, we think so. And we feel also that, in the past we were doing some of these things individually, whereas now as a team, and we're brought together as a team, we feel stronger and mightier in a way, and we can bounce off each other and review things together and talk about stuff, and we're there for each other as well, to a sounding board over things. So integrating some of our services into this team seems to have been a really good idea, and it's one place. So what's next? We have, the feedback is that we need this. I mean, and some of your centres may already have a wellbeing team, but as I said, we didn't call ourselves a team. We were doing this sort of thing, but not as a team. So it's come out, I suppose, an end result that this is needed, whether there's coronavirus or not. So as things change, you still need to have this wellbeing team within an institution. And with this comes that it can now be a bit more structured and formalised, and the strategies that we came up, we haven't had a chance to breathe yet, to go back and look over and review it ourselves in a way, even though we've had the focus group, but we can look at it, formalising it a little bit more and having a more consistent approach. But also what has to go in that, obviously, is some more resources and time allowances, because it's sort of an extra thing of what was, part of our role before COVID-19. Of course, student involvement and student taking on some responsibility for their own well-being would also be a great end result, we feel. So that leaves us to the final part of our presentation, of throwing it back out there, questions to you. Before we go on to the questions, we can be contacted. I put our email addresses there. This presentation will go, as I said, onto the English Australia website under the SAPD. You can contact me directly too if after this presentation you don't get in a question that you wanted to refer to Hong, Renee or Tanya. So we're happy to share what we've learnt, and we'd love to hear from you now if any of you may have been doing things that we can get some ideas from. So I'm going to throw it open to everyone. Probably the best way, Tanya, is to close the PowerPoint so we can sort of see each other. You can all take your mute off, and we won't do it just through chat. We will do it as a group. So anyone?
I can comment a bit as a teacher.
Okay, thanks, Surya.
I think that the social club and chat sessions were fantastic once they started going. And it was good that Hung came in and had a quick little plug, of the social club. I think, just seeing you helped them realise who you are, because I think when they get lots of those emails, some of them have shared their screen of their emails, and it's very overwhelming, and they're saying, do I have to go to this? What do I have to do? Which one? Who is this? Who's this person? So that was really great, I think, to sort of put that face to the name. So they were excellent, I think, and then they got to meet lots of other students, and they really enjoyed that. That's what they fed back to class as well. I reckon the only thing that, and obviously I can't really do anything about this, is students from different countries, some getting isolated because different countries have different apps. Some can't have WeChat, some can't have WhatsApp. So occasionally you get one or two that are just cut off from the rest. And they just can do email, but that's obviously not the same, when they're doing group projects and things like that. So that's the only thing that I find difficult with keeping them all connected to each other is, but I don't know what we can do about that. But that's just a comment. But everything has been fantastic.
Thanks, Surya. Thank you. Yeah, it is important to get, and it's great that teachers, can support what we're doing as well. And encouraging students, because you're right, students get a lot of emails, and helping them sort out what's worthwhile, what they should come to. Great. Anyone else like to share? Is anyone else running or have a wellbeing team sort of thing, or a focused group that sort of, I know as teachers, teachers do a lot of that, that they have to support their students. They're both teacher and social worker and, a whole lot of things. But it's great to have a central sort of team who are providing some extra support, I suppose.
Yes, Sandra. Oh.
Yeah, hi, Michaela.
Hi, I'm Michaela from Intensive English Language Institute. I guess we had a small team working on addressing the wellbeing of students as well and keeping them engaged. And we actually ended up doing quite a lot of similar strategies to what you had, but just executed in slightly different ways. I just thought I'd mention one activity that we tried that worked quite well for a select group of students and it filled quite a specific need for them. When we were all isolating back earlier in the year, but we were allowed to exercise outside, we wanted to really encourage students to take up the opportunity to get outside and exercise, because we knew that for a lot of students it was really vital for their mental health to be doing this as often as possible. we had a group of students that were really keen runners and walkers. And we created this activity whereby we made some teams, and collectively we added up our Ks that we individually ran or walked. And then we went on a bit of a virtual tour around South Australia, adding up the Ks that we did as a group. So that was a really great way to encourage the students to maintain exercise, as well as keeping them connected through something fun and learning something about South Australia at the same time. And that was an activity that we could stretch out.
What a great idea.
Weeks and months. And it was the first time that we were doing it. It was just an idea that I was inspired by something that the Marion Council was actually doing. And I think we might look at continuing this online as well. I think it had a couple of challenges in organising the activity, but I think it's worth pursuing because it really brought the students that joined were across levels and across classes. So it gave them an avenue to make new friends across the institute.
That's great, Michaela, because if I'm right, I think ILI, you've probably still got quite a number of students who are onshore.
That's right.
And so, but I see some, an activity like that being great for those students offshore to be part of. That
right. We were able to combine some, introduce students that were offshore to the students that were onshore as well.
Was that a voluntary thing, or was that part of the class, your class?
It was voluntary, but I'm sure it would work as a class activity as well. I'm sure there's a lot of direction that you could take with that as a class activity.
Yeah, sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay. So unless anyone else, I know I'm aware of the time, we're going right down to the wire here, 10:58. Perfect timing, well done. And Hong's got to go off and run an OChat now. So he's got an 11 a.m. one with students turning up. So Hong, thank you, you better go. Everyone else, please don't hesitate to contact us if you would like any further information or help. We're happy to share. And if you've got any ideas, like we've just heard another new idea, I'm sure some of us will try and integrate that some way in the future coming ahead. So Merry Christmas, everybody, as well. Happy New Year. 2021, yay. Let's hope. All right. Thanks for attending. See you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Hi, Sandra.
Hey Beth.
Oh, sorry I was late, but there's issues with the contracts that I have to sort out today, now.
All right. Okay, no problem. We've still got Pen here. She's going, I think.
So
All right.
you all ready to do the consultation?
Yes, I'm going to come into town. Tanya, you don't need to stay. I'm coming into town now because Richard and you're in work, aren't you, Tanya?
I am, yeah. Hong and I are both in town today. So, and Renee, I think, is popping in this afternoon as well, I think. Maybe not. I think there's a couple of people that are popping in this afternoon as into the office. So, yeah.
Oh, hang on. I better stop the recording.